I've been doing this Linux thing for 6-ish years now. This video exists. Don't watch it. It's not very good. If you hate me, if you hate yourself, check it out. I'm not gonna watch it here though, but I'll leave it linked in the description down below. So me coming to Linux comes shortly after the whole Proton being a thing, maybe like a year and a bit after that. Linux is so much further along than many of you guys remember. I know there are people watching this video who use, like, Ubuntu, 604, even older than that, use like Red Hat Linux, things like that. So my entrance to Linux, things were already pretty user-friendly, but it was still being treated as this weird niche thing, right? Like, there was still that idea floating around, and it's still kind of there today, just not as much, that you have to be a hacker, right? You gotta be a programmer to use Linux. You gotta be someone who wants to use the terminal. If you're not someone who's, very into computers, you shouldn't touch Linux whatsoever. If you're not someone who really wants to dig into the system, don't even try. And again, that's still there to some extent, but I really have noticed that sort of idea kind of drying up. And I think a big part of that is obviously going to be things like Proton, but also more importantly, the Steam Deck, because this gave a Linux-focused device directly into the hands of consumers. Yes, there are Linux laptops out there, and they've been a thing for quite a while now. From Dell, from Lenovo, and the thing is, you don't really see them in stores, though. That's the problem. You can buy them, you can get them online, and if you're someone that knows they exist, hey, and there's also Linux-focused companies. But this was a device that was Linux first, only sold with Linux, and if you wanted to use it, you had to use Linux. And this created a very different situation where now people could see what Linux was actually like, but not have to do the effort of installing it on their own system, not have to pick a distro, not have to do any of that stuff that is often considered a bit of a blocker. If they wanted to game on the Steam Deck, they were gaming on Linux. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I do think a lot of the people talking about it are very focused on SteamOS, and you see this as an idea raising up where people are like, oh, I would use Linux, but I'm waiting for SteamOS on generic hardware. I want SteamOS on generic hardware. That's going to solve all my problems. I've said my piece on that many, many times before. I think those people have been misled by some bad early reporting and rumors that don't really make any sense, and I don't think you need SteamOS. Things like Bazite do everything you want it to do. But at the same time, I think overall, this improvement in perception of Linux actually being usable, Linux being something that you can game on and you can use like a regular system, that overall has been a good thing. And I think another big part of the reason why there's been this change in perception is all of the mainstream tech channels giving coverage to Linux and doing so in my opinion, a fairly positive way. Now, of course, there's gonna be problems, but I think the way they've been approaching those problems has also been really positive. Now, of course, there have been very notable videos like the PewDiePie video. I installed Linux, so should you. This had a lot of people see it. This was a fantastic video. I really enjoyed this, and honestly, I have nothing negative to say about it. This is somebody who actually got interested in Linux and learned how Linux worked. They dived into Arch Linux. I have nothing negative to say about this video. And then the follow-up videos like presenting my $1 billion plan, which is not exactly a Linux video, but it's that sort of hackerspace adjacent sort of thing. He was making use of Linux to do various things and just sort of promoting the idea of open source software components and things like that. And honestly, again, I have zero complaints to say about this. Now, of course, the PewDiePie videos are a very big deal, and what, 9.5 million collective views between the two videos? Yeah, absolutely massive, but PewDiePie is not the only person who's been giving Linux incredibly positive coverage. I also want to mention channels like the various videos that Bog has made on Linux, all manner of them, whether it be this one, whether it be on Arch Linux or anything else, honestly, I think the Bog videos, for the most part, are really good videos. Then you have this video from a while back. This is about a year ago from Craft Computing. I switched to Linux 30 days ago. How did it go? Another great video. I've not watched this one just yet, but I've heard really good things about this CashOS video from Toasty Bros. Then we have, I think there's been 2 videos so far from Switch and Click. This is the Fedora video. I watched this video. Phenomenal. The first video, also really good. And then there's videos like this one, the Jay's 2 cents video. And I was so impressed with this one, right? Because when I see a big mainstream tech channel talk about Linux, I immediately get just a little bit worried. And I'll get more into this a bit later. It's because of the LTT coverage. And it's not inherently bad, but there are a lot of issues. And again, we'll get to those. Jay's video. Again, I have nothing bad to say about Jay's video. Yes, I can make some minor nitpicks about little things he did here and there. Overall, though, phenomenal video. But I also want to highlight some people who are not even remotely in the tech space. One of those is Liverkivi. Had him on the podcast a number of times. He's done a bunch of videos on Linux at this point. I think he's been doing this for a couple of years or so. And honestly, all the Linux videos are great. And again, I don't really have anything negative to say about them. I think the fact that he was willing to try it out, even though he knew there were things that were not perfect, there were teething issues, and there were going to be problems, he's stuck with it. And it seems like it's actually been going really well. And also I want to mention, because I am a bit of a weeb, as you probably can tell from the background, I also want to mention the VTubers who've been doing really cool stuff in the Linux space as well. One of those is Kylo Neko, who has an entire guide on how to VTube on Linux. It is a really good guide. I wonder if he has it linked here. Yes, he does. So if you're interested in doing VTubing on Linux, anything like that, this is a really, really good guide. It's still being worked on. There's some things to iron out when it comes to the formatting, but honestly, it is incredibly useful. And with that, I also want to mention that there are people who are self-admittedly tech illiterate who are still trying it out. Mikan the Mink, who put out a 2-hour stream going over all the reasons she's messing with Linux, everything she likes about Linux and open source, all the cool stuff. And this is cool, right? Like, people who know they're not good with tech, who still have their reasons for not liking Windows, especially with Windows 10, you know, going EOL, not wanting to use Windows 11, and actually willing to try out Linux and see what it's like. And that's cool. That's really cool. And encouraging other people who want to do the same. All of this coverage of Linux, no matter whether the channel is, you know, like Liverkivi, like Jay's 2 cents with 4.2 million subs, like PewDiePie with 110 million subs, or a channel like Mikan or Kylo's channel, which is quite a bit smaller. All of this coverage and different people in different areas talking about Linux, all of this is phenomenal. And I am so happy that we are actually seeing this happen. I am so happy that people are actually trying this out. People are giving it a real shot. Not just seeing a forum post and giving up when they get confused on what distro do I pick, but actually putting in a little bit of effort and trying it out. And all of these videos on Linux got me thinking about LTT's coverage, most notably the Linus Tech Tips Linux Daily Driver Challenge. Now, it's not that these videos were all around bad, right? Like, I enjoyed the videos for what they were. But what stands out to me is how problems were dealt with. Because if we're being completely honest, when you swap to Linux, when you swap to Mac, when you swap from whatever operating system you're on right now to any other operating system, you're gonna have problems, right? Like, that's just the nature of changing your operating system, the nature of changing your workflow. Like, going from Windows 7 to 8 and 8 to 10 and 10 to 11, you're gonna have issues because that's just what happens when you change a core part of your system. But what I've really been enjoying from a lot of the recent coverage is how people decide to deal with problems when they arise. Not the fact that they didn't see problems, because all of these people ran into problems, but the mindset they were in when they wanted to deal with a problem. I think the best example here is Linus deleting his entire desktop due to a Pop! OS bug. Now, this has been a well-documented bug, and frankly, System76 never should have shipped that bug. There was no reason that installing Steam should have downgraded the package, which downgraded the package, which downgraded the package, which basically nuked everything in the entire system. That's something that never should have hit a public release. Also, the problem was well-documented on forums and Reddit and various places like a month before the video came out. Like, it should have been dealt with long before LTT ever made a video on this problem. But when the problem happened with Linus, it seemed like he made absolutely no attempt to understand why the problem occurred, how to solve the problem, and there was footage of the problem, right? Like, he had a recording of his system, but there was no sort of, I guess, second thought about, okay, what happened here? Why did this happen? And how do I make sure this doesn't happen again? When it happened, he basically just gave up and went to a different distro and then, okay, well, Pop! OS doesn't work right now. That was by far the most egregious example, but it's a sort of mentality that permeated throughout the rest of that video and honestly the rest of the whole series. It seemed like Linus, and to some extent Luke, not as much Luke due to being a dev and actually having some Linux experience and, you know, being used to have to troubleshoot things, rather than trying to find a way to make Linux work for him and use the resources he had at his disposal, and I don't mean asking employees and asking friends that, you know, actually use Linux. This was explicitly stated as not allowed, and I understand, right? Like, going and asking Wendell, how do I use Linux? Understandably unfair advantage, but I mean doing research, looking at the footage you have of you trying to do things and trying to rectify issues, trying to solve why a problem happened, trying to troubleshoot issues, and, you know, actually learn how Linux worked, because he wasn't approaching it as someone who, you know, had a computer, knew how computers worked, and wanted to try out Linux. He wasn't approaching it like he was Linus. He was approaching it as if this person had basically never used a computer before and doesn't know how to break down problems, doesn't know how to solve problems that he has. And that's not a mindset I think you should go into anything with, whether it's trying out Windows, trying out Mac, trying out Linux, trying out Chrome OS, trying out some new hobby. I don't think you should go into anything expecting everything to just go well, and you're never going to have to troubleshoot anything. You're never going to have problems. Everything is just going to be completely smooth. This is in stark contrast to a lot of the recent coverage I've been seeing. Pick any of these videos, whether it's the PewDiePie video, whether it's Bog's videos, whether it's Toasty Bros, which again I haven't seen yet, but I'm sure from everything I've heard about it is the same way, whether it's Switch and Click, Jay's 2 cents, Kylo's guide, Mikan, like any of these videos. Let's go with Jay, for example. Let's just settle on Jay. In Jay's video, he intentionally went and picked an AMD GPU because he did research, or someone in his team did research who was working with him, knew that NVIDIA was a problem on Linux, and said, okay, I'm just going to avoid that. Like, I have the ability to decide what's going to be my system. I'm going to intentionally avoid NVIDIA, knowing that it's going to cause a problem. Great. Or the fact that he didn't spend, 10 minutes trying to be like, okay, well, what distro do I pick? Do I go with this one? Do I go with that one? But the guide says that one. But this other list says this one. He just picked Bazite. Like, he just picked Bazite. And in the video, he was explicitly saying, hey, I know that Linux people might argue about distros. I pick Bazite. I don't care. Great. Awesome. That's like exactly the mindset you should have. Just pick a distro. It doesn't matter. And Bazite is honestly a really great choice, especially because this was intended to be a dedicated gaming system. And yes, these might be little things, but they indicate the people working on this video, Jay, everybody else, was willing to work out problems, was willing to go and troubleshoot things and decide, hey, I can make choices to have a better experience. I can troubleshoot things to know what is the best way to do things. And let's go with the, where is it? The switch and click videos. This is the Fedora one. This is the one I watched more recently. This came out a couple of days ago. In this video, she got very confused about which version of Fedora to pick because you have all of the different main versions, then the spins and all of these other things, and it's confusing. Fedora has a lot of versions, and what did she do? She didn't say, I'm not going to use Fedora, I'm going to pick something else. She went and looked what the different versions of Fedora are, and ultimately decided between Fedora Workstation and Fedora KDE. Ultimately, she picked Fedora Workstation because a lot of people say GNOME is more macOS-like. Now, that's a lot of people saying things in a way that is not exactly representative of what they might mean, right? Like, someone looking at it from the outside, especially someone who comes from a macOS background, might hear it's like macOS and think it's like macOS, where it's actually like macOS in the way that it's more locked down. Not locked down. There's less options to play around with than something like KDE. So it's understand how she sort of got to there, because, you know, you have to do a lot of research to understand the nuances between what people are saying there. She also got confused about the package manager. Before, she was using Ubuntu, and Ubuntu has apt. Here she doesn't have apt. She tried apt. It didn't work. Instead of giving up, she went and found out, okay, Fedora uses DNF. This is why it uses DNF. It works based the same way, and I can just install things, and no problem there whatsoever. Also, initially she thought that you had to install things from the graphical software center or they wouldn't update correctly. She was told that's not the case. She went and looked at it, found out, hey, not the case. Okay, move on with my day. Also, didn't like some of the basic things missing in GNOME, and didn't just say, okay, I hate GNOME now. Found out that GNOME tweaks exist, and GNOME tweaks is a way you can enable a lot of these useful things that should be in the GNOME settings. Again, these are little problems she had, and all of these points could have just said, I hate this, I'm going to go back to something else, I was happy on Ubuntu, it was fine there. Didn't do that. Didn't do that whatsoever. Was willing to troubleshoot. And you might say, oh, a lot of average people aren't going to be willing to troubleshoot issues. It would be nice if these problems didn't exist. It would be nice if these problems didn't exist. At the same time, though, they do exist. And if you're going to be talking about Linux, if you're going to be encouraging people to try out Linux, I think doing so in a way where you're setting the expectation from the outset that you're going to have to troubleshoot, right? Like, your coverage directly includes troubleshooting. You're showing people that this is a thing you can do and this is a thing you should be doing. That sets a very different expectation that I think is really positive. I don't like the fact that a lot of people use computer and don't troubleshoot anything. They just give up when a problem happens and don't know what to do. You should know how to troubleshoot your system, whether you're on Windows, whether you're on Linux, and that is a really important skill to have. Or we can talk about the PewDiePie video. I learned things from this video. I don't have a boot time problem, but he did. In the video, he found a systemd tool that told him things that were starting up and things to get rid of and, you know, make the boot time faster. That's awesome, right? Like, I didn't know that problem existed, and again, I don't have that problem, but he had a problem, and he said, I'm going to fix the problem. I'm not just going to sit here and say, oh, it's like this, you know, go into it with like a mindset of I can't fix my problems. Went and fixed the problem, made it much better. And that's awesome, right? Like, just telling people that you can actually fix your system, and you should be encouraged to try things out. You should be encouraged to play around with your system. That is such a good mindset to give people. Now, I totally get wanting to just use a system as a system, but troubleshooting is for more than just computers. And I think having a mindset and encouraging a mindset where you know how to look at a problem and you understand how to take that problem, find resources to fix the problem, and actually fix it yourself, this is a good thing for your entire life. Encouraging people to problem solve things rather than just outsourcing every problem they have to somebody else, rather than, if they have a problem, replacing the thing they have. This is a good thing, and this is something which people should be encouraged to do. Whilst there are going to be some downers, whilst there are going to be some people who don't like some of the coverage we're seeing, don't like the fact that Linux might be getting more popular, I, for one, am someone who is really happy about this. I am so happy that people are giving Linux a try, that they are actually getting first-hand experience, not just relying on what other people say. And I wish this was the case more often with so many things, whether that be with Wayland, whether it be with anything else. Try it out, actually see what it's like today, not 5 years ago, not a year ago on a 2-year out-of-date version, but today on up-to-date software. So let me know, how long have you been using Linux? Why did you start using Linux? Was it because of the PewDiePie coverage? Was it something 20 years ago? Maybe you've been using Linux from the very start. I'd love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. Also, go and subscribe to all of the channels I mentioned down below. They all make good videos. PewDiePie doesn't exactly need more subs. He has 110 million, but go sub to PewDiePie anyway. And everybody else, all making great stuff. If you like the video, go like the video. Really like the video, and you want to become one over these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and use Arch Linux, by the way. Haha, funny joke. Something like this.